All the women, or rather the witches, were now sitting motionless in their chairs and staring as though hypnotized at somebody who had suddenly appeared on the platform. That somebody was another woman. The first thing I noticed about this woman was her size. She was tiny, probably no more than 4.5 feet tall. She looked quite young. I guessed about 25 or 6, and she was very pretty. She had on a rather stylish long black dress that reached right to the ground, and she wore black gloves that came up to her elbows. Unlike the others, she was not wearing a hat. She didn't look to me like a witch at all. But she couldn't possibly not be one. Otherwise, what on earth was she doing up there on the platform? So take a look at her. She looks nice enough. You can see through the screen, right? Looks nice enough. Pretty. And why, for heaven's sakes, were all the other witches gazing at her with such a mixture of adoration and awe and fear? And very slowly the young lady on the platform raised her hand to her face. And I saw her gloved fingers unhooking something behind her ears, and then she caught hold of her cheeks and lifted her face clean away, and the whole of that pretty face came away in her hands. It was a mask. And she took off the mask and she turned sideways and placed it carefully upon a small table nearby. And when she turned around again and faced us, I very nearly screamed out loud. There she is now. Not quite as pretty anymore, is she? That face of hers was the most frightful and frightening thing I've ever seen. Just looking at it gave me the shakes all over, and it was so crumpled and wise and so shrunken and shriveled it looked as though it had been pickled in vinegar. It was a fearsome and ghastly sight. There was something terribly wrong with it, something foul and putrid and decayed. It seemed quite literally to be rotting away at the edges, and in the middle of the face, around the mouth and the cheeks, I could see the skin all cankered and worm-eaten, as though maggots were working away in there. And there are times when something is so frightful, you become mesmerized by it and you can't look away. It was like that now. I was transfixed. I was numbed. I was magnetized by the sheer horror of this woman's features. But there was more to it than that. There was a look of serpents in those eyes of hers as they flashed around the audience. I knew immediately, of course, that this was none other than the Grand High Witch herself. I also knew why she had worn a mask. She could never have moved around in public, let alone book into a hotel with her real face. Everyone who saw her would have ran away screaming. "The doors!" shouted the Grand High Witch in a voice that filled the room and bounced around the walls. "Are they chained and bolted?" "The doors are chained and bolted, Your Grandness," answered a voice in the audience. The brilliant snake's eyes that were set so deep in that dreadful, rotting, worm-eaten face glared unblinkingly at the witches who sat facing her. "You may remove your gloves," she shouted. Her voice, I had noticed, had that same hard, metallic quality as the voice of the witch I had met under the conker tree, only it was far louder and much more harsher, and it rasped, and it grated, and it snarled, and it scraped, and it shrieked, and it growled. And everyone in the room was peeling off her gloves, and I was watching the hands of those in the back row, and I wanted very much to see what their fingers looked like, and whether my grandmother had been right, and, oh yeah, I could see several of them now, and I could see the brown claws curving over the tips of the fingers. They were about 2 inches long, those claws, and sharp at the ends. "You may remove your shoes," said the Grand High Witch. And I heard a sigh of relief going up from all the witches in the room as they kicked off their narrow, high-heeled shoes. And then I got a glimpse under the chairs of several pairs of stockinged feet, square and completely toeless. Revolting they were, as though the toes had been sliced away from the feet with a carving knife. So take a look at the fingers and the toes. Grandmama was right, 100% right. "You may remove your wigs," said the Grand High Witch. She had a peculiar way of speaking. It was some sort of a foreign accent, something harsh and guttural, and she seemed to have trouble pronouncing the letter W. So instead of saying wigs, she says vigs, like a V. So there's something I want to warn you of ahead of time. So when she says the word witches, she says it with a V, and it sounds like vitches. So don't get that confused with any kind of bad words. But she has a different kind of an accent for sure. As well as that, she did something funny when she said the letter R. She kind of rolled it in her mouth. and round in her mouth like a piece of hot pork crackling before spitting it out. "Remove your wigs and get some fresh air onto your spotty scalps," she shouted. And another sigh of relief arose from the audience as all the hands went up to the heads and all the wigs, with the hats still on them, were lifted away. So all those were just hair, wigs, and then hats. And that's what they really look like. Imagine, again, he is behind that screen seeing all of that. They don't know he's there, but he can see everything. There now appeared in front of me row upon row of bald female heads, a sea of naked scalps, every one of them red and itchy looking from being rubbed by the linings of the wigs. I simply cannot tell you how awful they were. And somehow the whole sight of it was made more grotesque because underneath those frightful, scabby, balding heads, the bodies were dressed in fashionable and rather pretty clothes. It was monstrous. It was unnatural. Oh, heavens, I thought, oh, help, oh, Lord, have mercy on me. These foul, bald-headed females are child killers, every one of them, and here I am imprisoned in the same room, and I cannot escape. At that point, a new and doubly horrifying thought struck me. My grandmother had said that with their special nose holes, they could smell out a child on a pitch-black night from right across the other side of the road. And up till now, my grandmother had been right every time. It seemed a certainty, therefore, that one of the witches in the back row was going to sniff me out at any moment and then yell "dogs droppings," and it would go up all over the room and I'd be cornered like a rat. So I knelt on the carpet behind the screen, hardly daring to breathe, and then suddenly I remembered another important thing my grandmother had told me. The dirtier you are, she had said, the harder it is for a witch to smell you out. How long since I'd had a bath? Not for ages. I had my own room in the hotel, and my grandmother never bothered with silly things like that. Come to think of it, I don't believe I'd had a bath since we arrived. When had I last washed my hands or face? Certainly not this morning, and not yesterday either, and I glanced down at my hands, and they were covered with smudges and mud and goodness knows what else besides, so perhaps I had a chance after all. The stink waves couldn't possibly get out through all that dirt. "Witches of England!" said the Grand High Witch. She herself, I noticed, had not taken off either her wig or her gloves or her shoes. "Witches of England!" she yelled. And the audience stirred uneasily and sat up straighter in their chairs. "Miserable bitches!" she yelled. "Useless, lazy witches, feeble, freebling witches, you are a heap of idle, good-for-nothing worms." What's a worm? Oh, a worm, right. She's not nice. A shudder went out through the audience, and the Grand High Witch was clearly in an ugly mood, and they knew it. I had a feeling that something awful was going to happen soon. "I am having breakfast this morning," said the Grand High Witch, "and I am looking out the window of the beach, and what am I seeing? I am asking you, what am I seeing? I am seeing a revolting sight. I am seeing hundreds, I am seeing thousands of rotten, repulsive little children playing in the sand. It is putting me right off my food." "Why have you not gotten rid of them?" she said. "Why have you not rubbed them all out, these filthy, smelly children?" With each word she spoke, flecks of pale blue phlegm shot out of her mouth like little bullets. "I am asking you why." Nobody answered her question. "Children smell," she screamed. "They stink up the world. We do not want these children around here." The bald heads in the audience all nodded vigorously. "One child a week is not good to me," said the Grand High Witch. "Is that the best you can do?" "We will do much better," said the audience. "We will do much better." "Better is no good neither," said the Grand High Witch. "I demand maximum results. So here are my orders. My orders are that every single child in this country shall be rubbed out, squashed, squirted, spittered, and frittered before I come here again in 1 year's time. Do I make myself clear?" A great gasp went up from the audience, and I saw the witches all looking at one another with deeply troubled expressions. And I heard one witch at the end of the row saying aloud, "All of them? We can't possibly wipe out all of them." The Grand High Witch whipped around as though someone had stuck a skewer into her bottom. "Who said that?" she snapped. "Who dares to argue with me?" "It was you, was it not?" She pointed a gloved finger as sharp as a needle at the witch who had spoken. I didn't mean it, your grandness," the witch said. I didn't mean to argue. I was just talking to myself." "You dared to argue with me?" said the Grand High Witch. I was just talking to myself," said the wretched witch. "I swear it, your grandness." She began to shake with fear. The Grand High Witch took a quick step forward, and when she spoke again, it was a voice that made my blood run cold. "A stupid witch who answers back must burn until her bones are black," she screamed. "No, no," said the witch in the front row. The Grand High Witch went on. A foolish witch without a brain must sizzle in the fiery flame. Save me, said the wretched witch in the front row, and the Grand High Witch took no notice of her. She spoke again. An idiotic witch like you must roast upon a barbecue. Forgive me, your grandness, said the miserable culprit. I didn't mean it. But the Grand High Witch continued with her terrible recital. A witch who dares to say I'm wrong will not be with us very long. A moment later, a stream of sparks that looked like tiny white-hot metal filings came shooting out of the Grand High Witch's eyes and flew straight toward the one who had dared to speak. And I saw the sparks striking against her and burrowing into her, and she screamed a horrible, howling scream, and a puff of smoke rose up around her, and a smell of burning meat filled the room. I don't think you can talk back to the Grand High Witch. Nobody moved. Like me, they were all watching the smoke, and when it had cleared away, the chair was empty, and I caught a glimpse of something wispy white, like a little cloud fluttering upwards and disappearing out of the window. A great sigh rose up from the audience, and the Grand High Witch glared around the room. I hope nobody else is going to make me cross today, she remarked. And there was a deathly silence. Frizzled like a fritter, said the Grand High Witch, cooked like a carrot. You will never see her again. Now we can get down to business. So if you look at that picture, she is not there anymore. Children are revolting, said the Grand High Witch. We will wipe them all away. We will scrub them off the face of the earth. We will flush them down the toilet. Yeah, said the audience. Wipe them away, scrub them off the earth, flush them down the drain. Children are foul and filthy, said the Grand High Witch. They are, chorused the English witches. They are foul and filthy. Children are dirty and stinky, said the Grand High Witch. Dirty and stinky, said the audience, getting more and more worked up. Children are smelling of dogs' droppings, said the Grand High Witch. Pew, said the audience, pew. They are worse than dogs' droppings, said the Grand High Witch. Dogs' droppings is smelling like violets and primroses compared with children. Violets and primroses, said the audience. They were clapping and cheering almost every word spoken from the platform. The speaker seemed to have them completely under her spell. To talk about children is making me sick, said the Grand High Witch. I am feeling sick even thinking about them. Fetch me a basin, I want to throw up. The Grand High Witch paused and glared at the mass of eager faces in the audience, and they waited more, wanting more. So now, said the Grand High Witch, so now I am having a plan. I am having a giganticus plan for getting rid of every single child in the whole of England. The witches gasped, they gaped, they turned and gave each other ghoulish grins of excitement. Yes, said the Grand High Witch, we shall fish them and swallow them, and we shall make them disappear every single smelly little brat in England in one stroke. Whoopee, said the witches. You are brilliant, your grandness. You are fantabulous. Shut up and listen, said the Grand High Witch. Listen very carefully and let us not be having any muck-ups. So the audience leaned forward, eager to hear how this magic was going to be performed. Each and every one of you, said the Grand High Witch, is to go back to your hometowns immediately and resign from your jobs. Resign, give notice, retire. We will, they cried. We will resign from our jobs. And after you have resigned from your jobs, said the Grand High Witch, each and every one of you will be going out. And you will be buying. She paused. What will we be buying? They cried. Tell us, O brilliant one, what is it we shall be buying? Sweet shops, said the Grand High Witch. Sweet shops, they cried. We're going to buy sweet shops? What a frumptuous wheeze. That'd be like a candy store. Each of you will be buying for herself a sweet shop. You will be buying the very best and most respectable sweet shop in England. We will, they answered. Their dreadful voices were like a chorus of dentist drills all grinding away together. I am wanting no tuppenny halfpenny crummy little tobacco-selling newspaper sweet shop, said the Grand High Witch. I am wanting you to get only the very best shops filled up with piles and piles of luscious sweets and tasty chocks. The best. We will buy the best sweet shops in town. You will be having no trouble in getting what you want, said the Grand High Witch, because you will be offering 4 times as much as the shop is worth, and nobody is refusing an offer like that. Money is not a problem to us witches, as you know very well. I have brought with me 6 trunks full of English money, all new and crisp, all of them homemade. I make my own money. The witches in the audience grinned, appreciating the joke. At that point, one foolish witch got so excited at the possibility presented by owning a sweet shop She leapt to her feet and she shouted, "The children will come flocking into my shop, and I will feed them poison sweets and pot poison chalks, and I'll wipe them out like weasels." The room became suddenly silent. I saw the tiny body of the Grand High Witch stiffen and then go rigid with rage. "Who spoke?" she shrieked. "It was you, was it not? You over there." The culprit sat down fast and covered her face with her clawed hands. "You blithering bumpkin," said the Grand High Witch, "you brainless bog vamper. Are you not realizing that if you are going around poisoning little children, you will be caught in 5 minutes flat? Never in my life am I hearing such a bush-walloping suggestion coming from a witch." The entire audience cowered and shook. I'm quite sure they all thought, as I did, that the terrible white-hot sparks were about to start flying again. Curiously enough, they didn't. "If such a tom-fiddling idea is all you can be coming up with," said the Grand High Witch, "it is no wonder England is still swarming with rotten little children." There was another silence, and the Grand High Witch glared at the witches in the audience. "Do you not know," she shouted at them, "that we witches are working only with magic?" "We know, your grandness," they all answered. "Of course we know." The Grand High Witch grated her bony gloved hands against each other and cried out, "So each of you is owning a magnificent sweet shop. The next move is that each of you will be announcing at the window of your shop that on a certain day you will be having a great gala opening of free sweets and chalks to every child. That will bring them in, the greedy little brutes," said the audience. "They'll be fighting to get through the doors." "Next," said the Grand High Witch, "you will prepare yourself for this great gala opening by filling every chalk and every sweet in your shop with my very latest and greatest magic formula. This is known as Magic Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker." "Delayed Action Mouse Maker," they chanted. "She's done it again. Her grandness has concocted yet another of her wondrous magic killers. How do we get this, oh brilliant one?" "Exercise patience," answered the Grand High Witch. "First I am explaining to you how my Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker is working. Listen carefully." "We are listening," said the audience, who were now jumping up and down in their chairs with excitement. "Delayed Action Mouse Maker is a green liquid." We say liquid, right? But liquid is how she says it, explained the Grand High Witch. "And one droplet in each chocolate sweet will be quite enough. So here is what happens. Child eats chocolate. Witch has a delayed action mouse maker liquid. Child goes home, feeling fine. Child goes to bed, still feeling fine. Child wakes up in the morning, still okay. Child goes to school, still feeling fine. Formula, you understand, is delayed action. It's not working yet." "We understand, oh brainy one," said the audience, "but when does it start working?" "It is starting to work at exactly 9 o'clock when the child is arriving at school," said the Grand High Witch triumphantly. Child arrives at school. Delayed action mouse maker immediately starts to work. Child starts to shrink. Child is starting to grow fur. Child is starting to grow tail. All is happening in precisely 26 seconds. After 26 seconds, child is no longer a child anymore. It is a mouse. "A mouse!" cried the witch. What a frumptuous thought. Here she is telling her awesome plan. You can see her mask on the table. That awful face, rotted out. Classrooms will be swarming with mice," said the Grand High Witch. "Chaos and pandemonium will be reigning in every school in England. Teachers will be hopping up and down. Women teachers will be standing on desks and holding up skirts and shouting, 'Help, help, help!'" They will," said the audience. "And what," said the Grand High Witch, "is happening next at every school?" "Tell us," they said. "Tell us, old brainy one." The Grand High Witch stretched her stringy neck forward and grinned at the audience, showing 2 rows of pointed teeth, slightly blue. She raised her voice louder than ever and shouted, "Mousetraps is coming out!" "Mousetraps!" cried the witches. "And cheese," said the Grand High Witch. "Teachers is all rushing and running out and getting mousetraps and baiting them with cheese and putting them down all over the school. Mice is nibbling cheese. Mousetraps is going off. And all over school, mousetraps is going snappity-snap, and mouse heads is rolling across the floor like marbles. All over England, in every school in England, noise of snapping mousetraps will be heard." At this point, the disgusting old Grand High Witch began to do a sort of a witch's dance up and down the platform, stamping her feet and clapping her hands. The entire audience joined in the clapping and the foot stamping. They were making such a tremendous racket that I thought surely Mr. Stringer would hear it and come banging at the door, but he didn't. And then above all the noise, I heard the voice of the Grand High Witch screaming out some sort of an awful, gloating song. Down with children, do them in, boil their bones and fry their skin, bish them, squish them, bash them, mash them, break them, shake them, slash them, smash them, offer chalks with magic powder. Say eat up, then say it louder. Cram them full of sticky eats, send them home still guzzling sweets, and in the morning little fools go marching off to separate schools. A girl feels sick and grows all pale, and she yells, "Hey, look, I've grown a tail." A boy who's standing next to her screams, "Help, I think I'm growing fur." Another shouts, "We look like freaks. There's whiskers growing on our cheeks." A boy who was extremely tall cries out, "What's wrong? I'm growing small." Poor tiny legs begin to sprout from everybody round about, and all at once, all at thrice, there are no children, only mice. In every school is mice galore, all running round the schoolroom floor. And all the poor demented teachers is yelling, "Hey, who are these creatures?" They stand upon the desks and shout, "Get out, you filthy mice, get out!" Will someone fetch some mousetraps, please, and don't forget to bring the cheese. Now mousetraps come, and every trap goes snippity-snip and snappity-snap. The mousetraps have a powerful spring. The springs go crack and snap and ping. It's lovely noise for us to hear. It's music to a witch's ear. Dead mice is every place around, piled 2 feet deep upon the ground, with teachers searching left and right, but not a single child's in sight. The teachers cry, "What's going on? Oh, where have all the children gone? It's 9:30, and as a rule, they're never this late for school." Poor teachers don't know what to do. Some sit and read, and just a few amuse themselves throughout the day by sweeping all the mice away. And all of us witches shout, "Hooray!" So if all the children ate all those free sweets and turned into mice, uh-oh.